Sporting competitions are some of the most sought-after spectator events around the world, with tickets to the biggest games often selling out in minutes and the best seats costing small fortunes to buy. In an effort to increase gate revenues and to give the opportunity for more people to be present at high-profile events, organizers have been building bigger venues with much larger capacities that push the limits of how many people can be seated in one place. Let's begin today's video on the top 15 largest stadiums and sports arenas. Number 15. Cotton Bowl Stadium, Texas. Originally known as the Fair Park Stadium when it first opened in 1930, the Cotton Bowl Stadium is most famous for having been the home of the Cotton Bowl Classic between 1937 and 2009, as well as the Red River Showdown, which is the annual football game between the Oklahoma Schooners and the Texas Longhorns. It's located on the site of the State Fair of Texas in Dallas, and it officially has a capacity of 92,100 people, although its record attendance is 96,009. And apart from mainly being used for college football, it also has been the venue for 6 FIFA World Cup soccer matches, the 2020 NHL Winter Classic, and countless music events. When it was first built, only the lower half was completed with a capacity of a little more than 45,000 spectators, and at a price of just $5.3 million at today's rates. And it was only during expansion projects in the late 1940s and 70s, and in the past decade, that have seen it reach the size that it is now. With continued interest in the site, it's not out of the question for it to be expanded even further, and the company responsible for managing the historical structure hopes that one day they'll be able to break the 100,000 spectator mark. Number 14. Sanford Stadium, Georgia. First opened in 1929 with a capacity of 30,000 people after being built by convict labor, but since having been expanded a number of times to give its current capacity of 92,746 spectators. The Sanford Stadium is the home of football at the University of Georgia. It's often referred to as the most beautiful stadium in college football thanks to the stunning views of a hilly landscape over the west-facing end zone, and it's known in particular for the privet hedges that surround the field, which is known as Dooley Field, and has led to the phrase, playing between the hedges. It's one of the very few large football stadiums that are still covered in real grass, as opposed to an artificial turf, and the groundkeepers proudly say that the particular seed of choice is Tifton 419 Bermuda grass because of its rich green color and the perfect playing condition it creates. Beyond footballs and concerts, the stadium was also used as the venue for the soccer medal match in the 1996 Olympic Games. And unusually, it's also host to the mausoleum, where every Bulldog mascot of the University of Georgia since 1956 has been entombed. Number 13. FNB Stadium, South Africa. Located on the border between Narsek and Soweto regions of Johannesburg and South Africa, the FNB Stadium was first opened in 1989, but substantially upgraded for when the country held the Soccer World Cup in 2010. It is by far the largest stadium in Africa, with an official capacity of 94,736 spectators, although this number is usually less because some areas of the stands are reconfigured during large events for VIP seating. It's used for soccer and rugby union matches, but also important national events, such as, for example, Nelson Mandela's first speech in the city following his release from prison in 1990. And as the venue for the memorial service that was held in his honor in 2013. The exterior cladding of the stadium had been designed to look like a traditional African pot called the calabash and features a mosaic of fire and earth colors with a light ring around the base, which gives the appearance of a fire being lit beneath the pot. Amazingly, despite having such a large capacity, no spectator is seated more than 330 feet or 100 meters from the field of play, and there's not a single restricted view seat in the entire stadium. Number 12. Camp Nou, Spain. Camp Nou, which is in Barcelona, Spain, is the home of the FC Barcelona soccer team, and it's the largest stadium in Europe. With a capacity of 99,354 spectators, it's now officially known as the Spotify Camp Nou, following a $310 million sponsorship deal. And as well as hosting sellout soccer matches on regular occasions, it's also a popular venue in the city for music concerts, and was even the venue for an address by the Pope in 1982. With a playing surface that's made up of 95% grass and 5% synthetic fibers, the stadium has been expanded twice since it first opened in 1957, and it's valued at around $1.2 billion. Still, with the demands of the modern sporting world, the owners are looking to further build it up, particularly in regards to the technology available on the first and second tiers. And this latest project is expected to be completed by the 2025-26 season. It is often seen as the center of European football, both because of the stadium and the success of the team that's based there. There truly is no better place to watch the sport than at Camp Nou. But despite having a capacity of almost 100,000 and there being games played every week or two, it's almost impossible to get a hold of tickets. Number 11. Melbourne Cricket Ground, Australia. Located in Yarra Park, which is in Melbourne, Australia, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which is often simply referred to as the G, holds the record as being the largest sports stadium in the Southern Hemisphere. It was originally built in 1853, but of course has undergone extensive refurbishment since then. And following the latest development works in the early 2000s, it now has a maximum seating capacity of 100,024 spectators. The ground is home of cricket in the country, often holding high-profile international events and the finals of the domestic league, but it's also regularly used for the Australian Football League matches, rugby union and league matches, and soccer events. It's also featured in the 1956 Olympic Games and 2 Cricket World Cups, with plans for it to be the venue for the opening and closing ceremonies of the next Commonwealth Games in 2026. The capacity is made up of 95,000 seats, along with space for just over 5,000 standing fans, and the stadium has been there for so long that it's an entrenched part of Melbourne life. As a sign of how important it is to sport in Australia, it's home to the Australian Sports Museum and was made a part of the Australian National Heritage List of Important Structures in 2005. Number 10. Bryant Denny Stadium, Alabama. The Bryant-Denny Stadium is the home of the Alabama Crimson Tide football team of the University of Alabama, which is part of the Southeastern Conference. It's located on the university campus in Tuscaloosa and originally opened in 1929 as the Denny Stadium in honor of the school's president between 1912 and 1932. This was changed to add the name of Paul Bear Bryant in 1975 after his long and successful tenure as the team's head coach. And as he remained with the team for a further 7 years, he became one of the very few Division I coaches to have led a team in a venue that was named after him. Since it was first built, there have been 9 periods of development that added further stands, decks, and seats, and its current capacity is officially 100,077 people. The design of the bowl is incredible, and there's nothing quite like the atmosphere during an evening game under the lights. Unlike other fields, the decision has been made to keep the one at Bryant-Denny as simple as possible, which means that even in 2022, there are no logos at midfield or the 25-yard lines, and the end zone designs are pared back with Alabama and Crimson Tide written in chunky lettering. Number 9. Daryl K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, Texas. Located in Austin, the Daryl K. Royal Memorial Stadium is the second largest in the state of Texas, and it has been home of the Longhorns football team from the University of Texas since 1924. After it opened in that year, it soon became clear that there was far more interest from spectators than the ground could accommodate, and a program of expansion began just 2 years later, and in almost a century has seen investments of hundreds of millions of dollars, and the capacity rise to 100,119 people. One of the biggest claims to fame of this stadium took place in 2006, the investment of $6 million into audio-visual improvements. These included the construction of the huge scoreboard, which measures 55 feet or 17 meters tall and 134 feet or 41 meters wide, and it's got a resolution of 2064 by 848. For a time, it was the largest HD screen in the world, and while that has since been surpassed, it's still one of the biggest in the United States. With the ability to pack so many fans into the venue, it's perhaps no surprise that the stadium, which named after the legendary football coach Daryl K. Royal, has delivered a significant home advantage, with the team having won 375 of the 502 games that they've played there. Number 8. Tiger Stadium, Louisiana. As the home of the Louisiana State University football team, Tiger Stadium originally opened for the first game in 1924 with a capacity of 12,000 people. In that time since, though, events have proved to be so popular there that a series of large expansion projects have taken place, and the stadium can now welcome as many as 102,321 spectators to each game. It's located on the university campus in Baton Rouge, and through its time has had a number of facilities that are unusual. In 1931, for example, the university used an expansion of the stadium to build student dormitories underneath the new stands, and these remained in use well into the 1980s before being repurposed for storage space. It's also one of just 3 Division I school-college stadiums that still uses the H-style or offset goalposts as opposed to the Y ones that are more common. And the crossbar from the old goalpost that was used between 1955 and 1984 is now mounted above the door from the locker room to the field with the word "win" marked on it, and there's now a tradition where every player has to touch it on their way out. Also featuring a state-of-the-art conditioning facility and all the additions you would expect from a top-level team, it's perhaps no surprise that in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, the New Orleans Saints used this stadium for 4 games of the 2005 season until they were able to use the Superdome again. Number 7. Neyland Stadium, Tennessee. First known as the Shields-Watkins Field when it was first built in 1921, but eventually renamed after the most successful coach in the team's history, Neyland Stadium is the home of the Tennessee Volunteers football team from the University of Tennessee and is in the city of Knoxville. After first opening, there have been 16 projects to expand the site, and it now has a capacity of 102,455 spectators, which is actually a few thousand fewer than previously after a section of seats was removed in the last upgrade. The field itself is made of Tifway Bermuda grass that's reseeded each year and sits on a 12-inch or 30-centimeter thick layer of sand to ensure proper drainage. Neyland has been voted on a number of occasions as the best college football stadium, as well as the one offering the best college football weekend experience, and it's also become somewhat of a stronghold for the home team. The Vols have recorded 36 perfect home records, the last of which was in 2007, and have a win rate of almost 80%. While it's predominantly a football stadium, it's also been used for various other events too, such as hosting a few NFL exhibition games, concerts, religious gatherings, and even political rallies like the Billy Graham Crusade in the 1970s that had Richard Nixon as a guest speaker. Number 6. Kyle Field, Texas. They say that Texas does everything bigger, and the fact that the state is home to 3 of the world's 15 largest stadiums certainly backs that up. The largest of them is Kyle Field, which is in College Station, and it's home of the Texas A&M Aggies football team from the Texas A&M University. First built in 1927 with a capacity for just under 33,000 people, a series of substantial upgrades now means it's able to welcome as many as 102,733 spectators for each game. It's often described as one of the most intimidating venues in college football. The team enjoyed incredible success in the 90s, where at one point they had 31 straight wins from 1990 to 1995 and 22 straight between 96 and 2000. Kyle Field is another that has a cemetery on site that's visible at the north end, and this is where the Aggie mascots have been buried since the 1930s, although there are now so many that some of them have been relocated across the street. Also hosting local high school playoff games, music concerts, military events, and religious gatherings. It's long become far more to the local community than just a sports stadium, and it's a focal point of university life. Number 5. Ohio Stadium, Ohio. Situated in Columbus, Ohio, the Ohio Stadium is primarily used as the home of the Ohio State Buckeyes football team from the state university. Also known as the Horseshoe, the Shoe, or the House That Harley Built. The stadium first opened in 1922 with a capacity of more than 66,000 people, which was virtually unheard of at the time. Since then, thanks to a number of expansions, the stadium has kept ahead of the rest, and today has an official capacity of 102,780 spectators. It's also unusual for a stadium in that its design is so highly regarded that in 1974 it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. As well as being a football stadium, it was also, for a time, the home of the Columbus Crew MLS team, the home venue for the OSU track and field teams, and also a major concert venue that's seen artists like U2, Taylor Swift, and Metallica perform there. As things stand, there are no official plans to extend the stadium further, but during the last expansion, the opportunity was left open to add a further 10,000 seats that, if this were ever to happen, it would likely make it the largest stadium in the United States. Number 4. Beaver Stadium, Pennsylvania. With elements that date back as far as 1909, the Beaver Stadium, which is on the campus of Pennsylvania State University, has been the home to the Penn State Nittany Lions since 1960. It's named after James A. Beaver, who was the governor of the state between 1887 and 1891 and was the president of the university's board of trustees for a time. And it has a natural grass playing field that's aligned northwest to southeast. Currently, it has an official capacity of 106,572 spectators, which makes it the second largest stadium in the Western Hemisphere. And this huge crowd has led to it being regarded as the toughest place for an opposing team to play in collegiate sports. It's often voted as having the best student section in the country, as well as being one of the most popular football stadiums in the country, something that led to Google choosing it as being the first to be imaged from the inside for Street View. It was at Beaver Stadium that in 2002, Penn State set the record for the most fans to watch a college team over the course of a single season. They hosted 8 games that year with an average attendance of 107,239 for each, giving a total of 857,911 attendees. Number 3. Michigan Stadium, Michigan. Holding the record for being the largest sports stadium in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere is Michigan Stadium, known as the Big House. It's the stadium used by the University of Michigan and has an official capacity of 107,601, although crowds in excess of 115,000 have been reported during certain events. The designers had their sights on future expansion from the moment the stadium was first built in 1927, and it had footings that would eventually allow it to welcome more than 100,000 people. The original team actually envisioned a future where 150,000 seats were needed, and it's still possible that an expansion like that could happen, although there are no current plans to take the capacity beyond where it is now. Along with a regular schedule of collegiate football, Michigan Stadium also attracts countless other events because of how big it is, and these have ranged from showcase soccer matches with some of the biggest franchises in the world to NHL games. It's also used by the university for graduation ceremonies, and it was here that President Lyndon B. Johnson announced his Great Society program to the country during the commencement ceremonies being held there. Number 2. Ringdo 1st of May Stadium, North Korea. Despite leaving most of the population to wallow in poverty, North Korea has embarked upon a number of large-scale construction projects. And if you're in Pyongyang, one of the most noticeable examples of this is the Ringdo 1st of May Stadium. Built on a 51-acre plot of land on an island in the city, it opened on the 1st of May in 1989 and has regularly put on events ever since. It was designed to look like a magnolia blossom with a scalloped roof and 16 arches around it, and when it first opened it had an official capacity of 150,000 people. Renovations in 2014, however, have revised this figure down to 114,000 people, but this still makes it the second largest stadium on the planet. The first major event to be hosted there was the 13th World Festival of Youth and Students, and it's now mainly used for soccer matches, athletic events, and for political rallies. As an example of the range of things that happen there, this stadium holds a rather unexpected record as hosting the largest pay-per-view wrestling event in history. Held in 1995, it was called Collision in Korea, and held over 3 days and had an estimated attendance of between 150 and 190,000 people. It's also the location of the annual gymnastics performances that have broken records for featuring as many as 100,000 performers, which was double the number of actual spectators. Number 1. Narendra Modi Stadium, India. By far, the most popular sport in India is cricket, and for a country with one of the largest populations on the planet, they had to make sure that as many people as possible were able to attend the highest profile games. The sport in the country focuses around the Narendra Modi Stadium, which is in the city of Ahmedabad and has a huge capacity of 132,000 spectators, easily putting it in first place as the largest stadium in the world. First built in 1983 and completely demolished and rebuilt between 2015 and 2020 at a cost of $100 million, it's named after the Prime Minister of India, who was once the president of the local cricket association and had been the driving force behind the redevelopment. It covers 63 acres of land and has 3 main entry points, with a metro station at one of them. Designed to be earthquake resistant, the structure doesn't have any pillars, so everyone has an unobstructed view, and unusually it uses LED lights for illumination instead of floodlights. Cricket pitches are larger than most other sports, which is one of the reasons why such a much larger structure can be built around it, and this is the only stadium in the world that has 11 center pitches on the main ground. It also has 4 changing rooms, which allows for back-to-back matches to take place on the same day. And it has 31 parking lots, 8 for 2-wheeler vehicles with a capacity for 12,000 vehicles, and 23 for 4-wheelers with a capacity for 15,000 vehicles. The wider structure also features an indoor cricket academy, a huge clubhouse with 3 practice grounds, a squash arena, and even an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And since it was completed, has now become the center of sports development for the whole country. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.